Guys, welcome to the hub on CGTN. I'm Wang Guan in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, and welcome to COP28. Now, it's fair to say that this COP is different from previous COPs in that the recognition is we're falling behind. In fact, we're falling far behind in terms of our emission targets. We are in a limited time offer to save our planet from becoming hotter and becoming more susceptible to extreme weather events. Now, this COP28 is attended by over 70,000 participants, believe it or not, and 200 delegations representing nation states as well. International organizations are represented. One message that is loud and clear is we must act, and we must act decisively.
We are taking baby steps, stepping far too slowly from an unstable world that lacks resilience to working out the best responses to the complex impacts that we are facing. We must teach climate action to run, because this has been the hottest year ever in humanity. So many terrible records were broken. Science tells us we have around 6 years before we exhaust the planet's ability to cope with our emissions, before we blow through 1.5-degree limit.
Since Paris, we have made some progress. But we also know that the road we have been on will not get us to our destination in time. We must look for ways and ensure the inclusion of the role of fossil fuels. We collectively have the power to do something unprecedented.
Climate envoys from China and U.S. discussed the actions and measures on methane and other non-CO2 greenhouse gases right here, showing the world's two largest economies are acting, inspiring partners and enhancing international cooperation to mitigate emissions. At the summit, China's Special Envoy for Climate Change, Xie Zhenhua, stressed the country's achievements in controlling methane emissions.
We're going to take specific and effective measures in energy, agriculture, and waste management so as to control methane emissions, guarantee energy security, and improve people's livelihoods. We're very willing to work with all parties to continuously improve our capacity and implement control measures, plans, and tasks in key areas.
No one country, no business, anywhere in the world will solve this problem by itself. It will take the essence of multilateralism and global cooperation to be able to make this happen.
The summit follows last month's jointly issued China-U.S. Sunderland statement on enhancing cooperation to address the climate crisis. According to the statement, two countries will immediately initiate technical working groups on policies, exchange technical solutions and capacity building on methane and other non-CO2 GHG emissions. Many are expecting more to be achieved at COP28 to address what they say is a global climate crisis. Galang, CGTN, Dubai.
On the sidelines of COP28, we were able to catch up with world leaders. Let's listen to what they have to say in terms of taking concrete and decisive actions to save our planet. What's your expectation for this COP28?
Well, foremost, and I would like to see that loss and damage fund see some light of operationalization and commitment of funds. We do understand that there is an ambitious goal to realize and address all the climate mitigation, but it's a promising start. The commitment of UAE, particularly on the Dubai's land, would remain remarkable and historical, that they were the one who took the lead and committed $30 billion from or to the countries, all of the global south, which definitely has a huge and more requirement, but it's a good start.
Pakistan suffered the worst flooding in decades. It's susceptible, as many countries are, to future climate calamities, balancing development and the need to fight climate change. What will be your message as Prime Minister of Pakistan to the world?
Climate adaptation, transformation to the renewables, and more sustainable projects in terms of the climate change is the future course. So that has to be repeated, and we should religiously follow it as a small nations, big nations, anyone, everyone.
Any thoughts on China-Pakistan cooperation in this front, and anything you want to say to our audience in China?
When it comes to Pakistan-China front, I don't see any area where we are non-cooperative. We are everywhere with deep cooperation, with deep commitment, with Chinese society and its leadership.
Dare to say that our bilateral relationship is at its best level ever, and we're profoundly grateful, and we have always been. President Xi and his role in today's world, and his Belt and Road Initiative helped not only China but many countries in the world to overcome some difficulties and to create a better environment for the prosperous future. And finally and very recently we signed our free trade agreement, and it will bring us to the next level of our cooperation, and hope that I'll be able to hosting presidency soon in Serbia.
Come visit China again, please.
Yeah.
How do you feel about COP28, Mr. President?
Well, I feel good about COP28. I think it's the climate issues that what we are here. We've been on it since COP26.
Yes.
But I hope that we can solve some of these problems.
What are your expectations for the future relations of China and your wonderful country, Liberia?
Well, we hope that Liberia continue to grow and remain peaceful, and continue to build cooperation with the Committee of Nations.
Nation states, of course, are major stakeholders. As important as they are, there are other stakeholders as well. Cities, for example, are bearing the brunt of the impacts of climate change, and they're also on track to be the most promising stakeholders in terms of affecting change. Now, on the sidelines of COP28, we were able to catch up with mayors from around the world. Let's listen to their messages. Mr. Mayor, tell us a bit about how Athens has been bearing the brunt of climate change and climate disasters, because we know that it's uniquely located. It's a must-go place for tourists from around the world, but it's also vulnerable on one hand.
Yes, resiliency is key in our perspective. I think Athens is back in terms of promoting climate change mitigation and adaptation actions. We are now a touristic destination also for colleagues from your country. We are very happy for that, but we need resilient infrastructures and sustainable tourism in order to be able to promote greening opportunities and policies, as well as increasing the touristic product.
Tell us about your expectations for this COP in particular, because hopes are so high, expectations are so high for this COP to deliver.
It's a very critical COP in terms of action. We need strong decisions. We are already reaching 2 degrees. We had a very hot summer, hottest July ever recorded, hottest August ever recorded, so expectations are high. The opportunity window is also very small, so we need to go from theories to action, and this is particularly important for cities, and this is why I'm also here.
Tell us about the initiatives that you will have been launching once assuming office in January next year?
1st of January. I'm elected and
congratulations,
I start
Mr. Mayor.
1st of January. Thank you very much. So, first thing is to reduce the temperature, the feeling temperature during the summer up to 5 degrees. You know, it's very difficult during July and August in Athens. We have temperatures of 40, 45 degrees Celsius, so it's very, very hot. And with trees and other super cool materials, we aim to decrease the temperature and, of course, to reduce air pollution. We're having air pollution and as many other mega cities, and we are trying to find ways to reduce air pollution, to reduce traffic congestion, and thus to create more vibrant and sustainable environment for people and not for cars.
Talking about sustainable tourism, do you have anything specific in mind, especially when it comes to China, because Chinese tourists love the Aegean Sea. They love the many islands and the very unique sceneries that your city has to offer.
During the previous years, Athens was, let's say, a way to go to the islands. So they were visiting Athens and then they were taking a boat to the islands. So now they are sitting to Athens. Athens is now a destination, a touristic destination. So we need to change also our mindset and create an environment that will attract even more colleagues from China and will foster also joint cooperation also in terms of education. I know that you are studying in the UK or in other places around the world. Why not in Greece? So I'm also trying to find opportunities for creating a memorandum of understanding with universities and other things, mainly for masters or additional, let's say, programs that will enhance our cooperation and collaboration.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, one question that has been on my mind is that how come the Greeks can churn out so many philosophers, thinkers throughout history? I mean, those people who are blessed with this critical mind, seeing through things. How did you guys do it?
It was a long time ago, but I think it was very important that we had all these great philosophers, and we are still keep motivating ourselves by these excellent colleagues from the past. But listen, the past should drive us to the future. So the idea is to build on our past and create a future that will be based on philosophy, on the liberty and on more transparent and legitimate dialogues with other countries, and we think that we can proceed in this respect. And Athens is, I think, a unique place for promoting democracy. Democracy was born in Athens.
Demo, people. It's Greek, yeah?
It's a Greek word. Demokratia is the Greek word. So we want to promote democracy all around the globe.
Very good. And China obviously is adopting a different system than, let's say, American-style democracy. And many scholars would argue that they work for China, mobilizing the people, building infrastructures, driving, pushing through modernization.
This is very important. And in my point of view, modernization and new technologies and sustainability should come together with citizens. And this is what we call also just transition, which means just transition, which means that we are within a transition, a sustainable transition, but we need to be all of us together, not only some and some others left behind. So this is the reason why we promote social justice and green justice as, let's say, inclusive policies that will help us to become more sustainable and resilient in the future.
A personal question, do you think China and the United States can avoid modern-day Thucydides trap, or should they?
We need to work together. We need to collaborate. And we need to keep discussing, having open dialogue. We might have differences, but we are having, because we are in the COP, we all live in one planet. We have global challenges like climate change, and if we work together, we can succeed. Otherwise, it will be difficult for all of us.
Now, of course, it's not just the Athenians and Greeks who are all too familiar with the tale of Thucydides' trap. So are modern-day decision makers in Beijing and Washington. Now, Ben Harburg sits on the board of directors for the National Committee on U.S. China Relations, an organization that's among the organizations that staged the banquet to welcome the visiting Chinese President Xi Jinping not so long ago in San Francisco. It's also worth noting that Ben Harburg's father was a former U.S. Air Force pilot who transported late Dr. Henry Kissinger from Pakistan to China, a trip that helped bring about détente between Beijing and Washington. Let's listen to what Ben Harburg had to say. Let's talk about COP28. So many expectations, so much hope has been laid on this specific meeting. How do you hope that he can deliver?
We see the geopolitical poles kind of shifting in this direction. This is a market that has a huge amount of appetite and capital for driving clean energy, for getting off of oil as its primary revenue driver. And I think that the timing couldn't be better for all the kind of world to convene here in the place that's now become kind of the new Switzerland to discuss such pressing issues.
But according to this, stock take of the world that is assessing where we are right now, compared with the Paris Accord 5 years ago, whether or not nations have, delivered on their promises on cutting emissions, we're far behind. I mean, we're some 3.5 degrees. That is far short of the goal of 1.5 degree. What do you make of the urgency of taking climate actions?
Massive issue. It's one that requires global coordination in the balkanized kind of decoupled world that we find ourselves in. That's one of the big things that scares me the most, is that we're going to not be able to come together, particularly amongst the G2 here, to address many of these issues that require each other to collaborate with to solve them. America cannot beat a lot of its climate targets without Chinese technology.
But what do you think of the Sunnyland statement between China and the United States issued right after the Xi-Biden summit on climate?
A good first step and productive, but again, it's just one where we need to see the proof in the pudding, and the announcements will only serve half measures.
As an investor, how do you feel about the issue of climate change? I mean, what have been your perception when it comes to climate and climate financing? Where do we fall short?
It's a really challenging space. If you talk to a lot of funds, they'll try to show you their returns with climate investments kind of cherry-picked out. So it's been one from a commercial perspective that's been very challenging to find sustainability, and therefore it's relied heavily on subsidization and government support. My hope is that we can turn the corner and start making some of these types of climate ecosystem investments more commercially viable, so that the private sector can really pull its weight.
Let's talk about the role of China. China is producing the largest amount of EVs in the world, among other things, but this is also facing challenges, the economic downturn, unemployment among the youth. What do you make of China's efforts throughout the recent years, and also looking at the future on meeting its emission targets?
China is a huge contributor, and I think has in many ways pulled its weight mightily when it comes to green energy and decarbonization. So I think China has to be a leader. It already is a leader in the sense that it's manufacturing a lot of the solar, a leader on hydro and wind. And so my view is that if we don't have China engaged at the table, nothing is going to get done. And again, I think China has a long way to go, but is very much pulling its weight.
Let's talk about the recent summit between President Xi and President Biden. You were in it. Actually, you helped organize part of President Xi's meeting. What was it like?
It was really affable. I mean, I think he's kind of known, I think, in China as a man of the people. He's someone that's very good at popular politics, and so he spent a lot of time, for instance, with the folks from Iowa, with a lot of time with the
Muscatine.
That's right, Muscatine from the Flying Tigers. And I think he really engaged with
them. And you guys, the entrepreneurs.
That's right. And I think that was a really important symbol. There was not a lot of conversation within his talk with Biden or at our dinner about the private sector specifically, but I think just his presence with American business leaders shows how important it is to him.
The sentiment was that multinational companies are moving away from the Chinese market, and confidence needs to be re-injected into China going forward. And President Xi's gesture is seen widely as a move that is saying to the world, look, China is welcoming foreign investors. Do you think China has, is getting the message across?
I think China is welcoming of foreign capital. The challenge is that foreign capital is wary of China because of some of that unpredictable regulatory intervention. It's also just wary from a returns perspective. This hasn't been a great year of returns for global investors as they enter the China market. Demand is slowing, consumption is slowing. So I think that's scaring people away more so than anything politically.
Ben, tell us about your feelings. What went through your mind when we heard about the news of Dr. Kissinger's passing?
A really painful moment for me. He's someone that I tried to think of as a role model when it comes to playing a constructive and pragmatic role in U.S. China relations, one that factors in obviously realpolitik, but a man who I spent quite a bit of time with. He was obviously a board director with me at the National Committee. He showed up every board meeting, he talked, he shared his views with us consistently. I last saw him at our gala just about a month ago in New York, which I think was one of his very last public appearances. And he still spoke eloquently, directly, and without notes that day. So he was sharp up until the very end.
As the son of the former pilot who took Dr. Kissinger from Pakistan to China, which helped engineer the ice-breaking scene of China and the United States in 1971. How would your father tell you about flying Kissinger to China? Did that plant a seed in you, in your interest and passion in China and in the Chinese culture and society?
Absolutely. I mean, my dad was instrumental in a lot of Kissinger's trips globally, and that infused in me an interest in international relations at the beginning, and then of all issues globally, U.S. China to me is second to none, and so that became my core focus over the last almost decade of my life. So it was remarkable to have been able to be in China and kind of come full circle as a family from the time when my father was involved in some of his early flights to China and opening relations, and I think it's somehow fitting that I can continue to play a small role with.
You know, Ben, we've been talking about China-U.S. relations. Right now we're standing here at COP28, a critical juncture. Your hopes on what China-U.S. relations should be post-Xi-Biden summit?
So I think it's clear that this is now a competitive dynamic, and we've now gotten to a place where decoupling is going full stream. So what we can expect today is hopefully constructive competition, pragmatic competition, and stable competition. So one where both nation feels that there's a set of ground rules and barriers to conflict, so that we can at least compete in a place where hot war and other kind of dangerous incidences are off the table. This region is really in an interesting role today. It's kind of become the new convening point. You have equal amounts of Americans doing business here as well as Chinese. So I think, again, this setting is fitting as a one that we can address global challenges, and ones that obviously require a lot of intervention also from the global south and the north. And this has become that convening place where all can kind of communicate, do business, and hopefully come for some concrete solutions.
And that will do it for this edition of The Hub on CGTN. I'm Wang Guan at COP28 in Dubai, the UAE. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you again soon.